Dr. King is often quoted as saying, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And I like to think that by showing up here tonight, we're all trying to bend that arc just a little bit, each of us together. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you all, both those of you who have taken the trouble to show up here in person and those of you that are beaming in via Zoom from who knows where. So welcome everybody, every member of our audience. I would like to thank our collaborative's partners whose logos you see on the screen behind our excellent panel. I would also like to extend a special thanks to Gateway Technical College, especially Zach Hansen there in the back. Zach, thanks a lot. I gave Zach beer. We have a great panel tonight. Vicky Selko from the city experienced an 11th hour scheduling conflict. So in her stead, we have her colleague, Maxwell Love, who will fill in capably for her. I have the pleasure now to introduce Tammy Hayward, co-president of the Racine Interfaith Coalition, to lead us in prayer.
If you'll pray with me. Dear Lord and Father of us all, it was not part of your plan for creation to have many of your children be homeless, often due to illness, chronic unemployment, the after effects of the pandemic, or a single catastrophic event. People find themselves without the resources to secure the basic need of shelter for themselves and their families. Our ignorance or apathy is no excuse to allow this situation to continue. We are here tonight because we see the need and are longing to change it. Guide us, Lord, to discern your will, educate ourselves about the issues, to come together to end the crisis of homelessness, and to resolve to make our city somewhere everyone may find a safe place to call home. Amen.
Okay, before we get around to introducing our panel, I'd like to acknowledge Christopher Bogan, a representative from Senator Baldwin's office. Thank you very much for being here. We're very glad to have you. I would next like to call up Scott Metzel, the Executive Director of the Hope Center, who will introduce our panel.
Thanks. It's great to be here in a way to see so many people. It's also not so great to be here because the topic we have tonight is a really difficult one. But we have a great panel here to discuss the housing crisis in Racine that affects the people that we serve at Hope Center who are experiencing homelessness, as well as many people in our community who live in a state of housing instability. But to introduce our panel, I'd first like to introduce our moderator tonight. She has over 20 years of experience as a reporter and an editor at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and Patch, as well as being the co-founder of Racine County Eye, which brings us a lot of interesting and informative news for our community. It's my pleasure to welcome Heather Asinyambi.
Hey, everyone. So thank you for the warm welcome and thanks for even inviting me to be here. I appreciate it. Homelessness is unfortunately a prevailing issue that we still have to talk about, much like health insurance. But I wanted to introduce our panelists tonight. They're pretty amazing people, not only just because of what they do, just because of who they are also. So Carl Fields here. He is the director of community. Yeah. He is the director of community engagement at the Hospitality Center of Racine. One of the reasons why he's so passionate about what he does is that for him, Racine is not just a place to live, it's where he calls home. And he believes that taking care of each other is a way of taking care of ourselves. Next, we have, Grant, I should ask how to pronounce your last name. Binger, thank you. Grant Binger is the executive director of Racine Habitat for Humanity. So there's exciting news. There are 4 homes that are nearing completion that will be for sale this spring, and they will start another 4 roughly around the same time. So sometime this spring. And he really likes his job and what he does just because, he's also from Racine. This is more, it's more than just going to work every day, right? He's making improvements and investing in his community. Next we have Dashika Kidd. She is the program manager for the Racine. Oh, sorry. Yep. I might be a little nervous. She is the program manager for the Racine Financial Empowerment Center and program manager for Housing Resources Incorporated. What she told me before the panel is that it is most important to her to help the community become resilient through education and resources for reaching goals. So when I looked on the website to find out more about Dashika, it said that she is really passionate about generational wealth, which, as we know, there is a huge racial disparity in wealth in this country, and you can see it everywhere. So that is a really amazing, yes, we need that. Okay. And then we have Max Love. He's with the city of Racine as a communications specialist. He's originally from Lodi, and he has a background in housing activism, both when he was a student at UW-Madison and even beyond that. So he considered it community organizing, but I mean, we all know where community organizing can get you, right? And then we have Kaylee Cutler. So she is the Families in Transition and Truancy Intervention Specialist. I told you I was going to go slow so that I didn't stumble over all that, with the Racine Unified School District. Now, she has been in her position for 7 years. And out of what she says is that there's roughly 4% of the Racine Unified student population that are experiencing homelessness. There are 16,000 children who attend unified schools. That means 700 kids every day don't have a place to call home. Think about that. 700 children that she knows about, right? There could be others that we're just not aware of. So that's another reason why this is so important. All right, so the way this is going to work is we have 5 questions. Each panelist is going to answer all of these 5 questions. They're going to get between 60 minutes, not minutes. Oh, good God. Could you imagine? I know, like, you're never leaving. Like, we're just spending the night. I hope you brought a pillow. No. So between 1 and 2 minutes to answer each question. And then we also have 1 question for each panelist that is specific to their position in their organization. All right. So I'm going to start. Okay, I'm a little stopwatch going here. And then after we get through the questions, we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you grabbed a note card and a pencil when you walked in, pass them to this end, and Tim will collect them and bring them to me. We also have people on Zoom. So if our Zoom people, if our participants on Zoom have a question, please just write them in the chat, and Sister Lisa is going to text them to me. So we will get them in that way. All right, so we're going to start with Carl. What do you wish people understood about local housing issues that are commonly misunderstood?
Okay. Well, it's a good question. I certainly feel like there are a lot of issues that are mostly understood. The misunderstanding comes in how to transition people from their current circumstance into an actual place, and how to help them keep that place. It's a hard transition, and it's a realistic thing that doesn't get talked about as much or funded as much. And when we're talking about transition, we're not talking about employment, a person being able to find a job, a person being able to gain a job or gain access to a job, but it's on how to keep that job. And walking with a person on how to do that's a big deal. The same goes for housing. We deal with a lot of people who are in actual homeless crisis status, or they are in that housing instability category, which is a very mushy phrase, but it is nonetheless accurate in that a lot of people feel some safety in being connected to family or being connected to someone to help them walk with what their housing scenario is. Racine has issues of disparities in multiple categories, and to acknowledge that is a big deal. To get that acknowledged in public forum, in open forum, is an even greater deal, especially coming from a Black man myself. I struggle with both getting, I struggle with getting that acknowledged and getting that addressed in a very tangible way. It's a hard process. Grant is going to cover, as I'm sure soon, building houses. He wishes he could build them faster at a much faster rate to be able to put people in those homes. But also to help a person keep that home means you have to address the issues that we're talking about in a very holistic way. One of those issues is race, and one of those issues is the fact that systems and procedures were built to X people out. Thank you.
Thank you. Grant, same question. What do you wish people understood about local housing issues that are commonly misunderstood?
I think people sometimes tend to think it's simpler than it actually is. And so I wish people understood the complexity of the housing issues in totality. So I think it's this, when you really look at it, I think it's this spider web of all these influencing factors, everything from things Carl's already mentioned, right? So employment, income, zoning, legal issues, historical factors from years and years ago, they're still influencing what we do today and how we do it. Mental health, education, the transfer of wealth from generation to generation. Like, this is really, really complex, and there's not just one or two things that we can do to make progress in this area. And so I think the more we understand the vast array of things that are influencing it, the more I think we can do something about it.
She could, same question. Everybody, same question. What do you wish people understood, especially speaking from like your particular position in your organization, about local housing issues that are commonly misunderstood?
I wish that in most cases, people understand that purchasing a home can be more affordable than renting and provide more stability for them and their families, as well as providing that generational wealth. Most people are paying over 40 to 50% of their income in rent, where if you look at the local housing affordability, 30% of your income should be used, no more than 30% of your income should be used towards your housing cost. And we have people paying well over that, which is really creating a crisis budget, not just a budget, but what are my priorities? What do I have to prioritize in order to keep my family afloat? Also, not everyone can navigate the steps to home ownership by themselves. So making sure that they know about the resources and where to start, especially because a lot of our families are first generation homeowners, and they look at my grandparents never bought a house, my parents never bought a house. So I never even realized that it was a possibility for me. And then helping clients to realize that the opportunities are there and that we do have professional certified counselors that can help them navigate the system. And then realizing that homeownership stabilizes lives, and not only lives, it stabilizes families and the community. So we all win once we're educated and we work together for the betterment of our community.
Perfect. Thank you. Max, same question. Oh, and so everyone, like, I know this is
Really
weird,
close,
but, like, the
basically.
mic has to be like in your face.
Can I?
There we go.
Okay, is that too? I
Thank
think I might have
you.
woke somebody up back there. Just kidding. So as Heather noted, I'm really like the outsider here, right? I just started with the city. I'm not from this community. I think the only benefit that offers me is that I kind of have like the outsider's view in terms of what I've been able to witness in the last couple of months working at City Hall. And I would say that Vicky really wanted to be here, and she sends her regrets. She was like triple booked and couldn't get out of it. So I'm the communications person. That means that I get to kind of hear a lot from people in the community who are experiencing issues and have complaints. And I think the one thing that we want to communicate is that we can't just wave a magic wand and fix things, just like everybody else has said. And the city's in a unique spot where we're kind of in the business of providing housing or helping provide housing, but we're not really like a housing provider. And that means working with a ton of different organizations and other municipalities and entities to really try to convene the resources and try to make sure that what we're doing is actually having a positive impact, which again, as the outsider and somebody who's only been here for a couple of months, I'm actually pretty surprised at the number of things that are happening in this community to really help people become homeowners and build that generational wealth that people are talking about on the panel.
Right, wasn't on. So Kaylee, from your position at Unified, what do you wish people understood about housing issues?
That it's so much more than just getting people into a house. I think a lot of people don't understand that, at least what I've realized with families that I work with, so many of them get into these apartments or they get the places, but they don't have the supports and the people behind them to keep them in their housing. That's been a huge issue. A lot of my families obtain housing and then fall right back into homelessness. So I know that has been a huge thing for a lot of people to wrap their head around. Even families themselves who are experiencing homelessness, they don't recognize or think that they still need help because they are housed. So it's just that continued support that I don't think people realize we need so bad.
Thank you. I appreciate all of those answers. So from your particular positions again at your agency, what do you think contributes to the housing crisis in Racine County? Carl, you first?
Sure.
You know what? We're gonna
Switch
skip,
it.
sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're gonna
That's
go to
fine.
Grant. Sorry.
All right, I will just sit this down then. Go ahead.
We'll come back to you.
Sorry. Okay, Grant.
Yeah, so from my perspective, the biggest thing that I see again and again and again is the incredibly low percentage of owner occupied housing in census tracts 1 through 5. In parts of our city where we experience some of the housing instability the most acutely, owner occupancy is as low as 30%. And for perspective, the national average is 66. So less than half. And specifically as it relates to people of color, the number 2 reason why Racine is the second worst place for African Americans to live is the lack of home ownership opportunity. 24% of African Americans in Racine County own their own homes. And I believe the Hispanic percentage is also just under 30. So in comparison, for white families, it's 72%. It's just there is a huge disparity. And I think when you think about that more, that means there's a monopoly in the rental space in our housing. And there's a lot of impact that comes with that. It eliminates the housing stock. It makes it hard to keep a first-time home ownership opportunity affordable. And it also makes it tough to address an aging housing stock that's over 100 years old, where we have problems with lead and asbestos and overcrowding. And so I'm going to stop there, but I think that's the biggest issue. I think the fact that owner occupancy is 30% in parts of our city leads to a lot of different issues here in Racine.
Okay. Thank you. Dashika, same question. What do you think contributes to the housing crisis in Racine County as you see it in your line of work?
From my perspective, I think the 18% increase in rent prices over the last 5 years has contributed significantly to the housing crisis. Also, our wages are not increasing fast enough to keep up with inflation. Everything is costing more money, but our incomes are not moving as fast. The minimum wage in Wisconsin has not increased since 2008 and is still at $7.25 per hour, which I don't know who can manage a budget or a household on that income. So that is a big issue. A lot of families are moving in together and combining households to make ends meet for them not to experience homelessness. The rate, like Grant mentioned, the housing stock in Racine is very, very old. So if someone is purchasing a home, it's going to need a lot of work and they're going to have some type of emergency funds or some type of assistance to be able to get that house where it's safe and affordable for them, for their families to live in. And then I also mentioned that a few years ago that there were bidding wars on property. So a lot of people were paying over the asking price for the property as well as over the appraisal price for the property just to win the bid on the home, where now they're going into their home with negative equity. And that's kind of scary
Yeah.
for me.
Max, just right before this started, I looked up I just wanted to understand, like, is there anywhere in the United States where you can afford a 2-bedroom home? And basically the answer is no, not unless you're making $26 an hour. So think about that. $26 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. That's what we're dealing with. Sorry, Max, go ahead.
Oh, that's bleak. Thank you. So I don't have too much to add on the last two speakers, but I think one kind of perspective, I used to work in the state government, and one thing I just wanted to add is that we're really constrained by the state on what cities can do to actually protect renters. And the state is mostly by the Republican legislature has really come down on the side of landlords and kind of protected landlords over renters. So I think that's an issue that we need to kind of push back on and try to change. For example, we're limited in terms of stopping some of those rent increases that you talked about, like the exorbitant percentage increases year over year, and limiting some of the criteria that landlords can use as they decide who's going to rent. I was speaking with somebody this morning who had messaged our page and said, "Hey, I'm a single mom. I've got several kids," and that's become a factor in some of the in the situation she's found herself in terms of trying to get housing and being denied housing. The city has some programs, try to help people, fair housing programs, but again, we're really constrained by what the Republicans in the state legislature have done to stop cities from being proactive.
Okay, thank you. Kaylee, at Unified, what do you see as biggest contributor to the housing crisis?
Well, of course, the insanely expensive just places to rent. Families can't afford it. But going with that too, the housing market was so competitive. There are so many people buying and selling houses that it was last year. I think that was probably one of the top causes of families going into my program was because the landlord sold and the new landlord upped the rent or just straight kicked them out. And then a lot of our families have records. They have evictions on their record. They are unable to get these apartments, even the ones that are available and maybe in their price range, because they have evictions on their record. I have so many families that have had to result in staying in hotels solely because nobody will rent to them. Even some of the families make good money and they're still forced into homelessness because of those past evictions.
Okay, thank you. Dashika, I'm going to give you the first question.
Oh, that's all right. You just skip me, did you?
Did.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
I'm a little, it's been a while since I've done this.
Hey, and we're having fun, so we're gonna keep
Okay,
having
I
fun.
appreciate it.
So, and I'll be quick.
I'm a little rusty. Go ahead.
So I know, I mean, a lot's been covered by the panel so far, and I certainly can appreciate the question. I mean, or the statement about disparities and discrimination built into that particular process, having means actual income to do what it takes to have a place and can't get a place. Like that's a very real thing. I was gonna speak about some of what the Sheikah was talking about. But basically systems have moved forward and opportunities haven't. I mean, up until very recently, the city of Racine didn't even have a place for people to go like the Empowerment Center. We now actually have that. With that being on the ground and being a realistic thing, you know, we can add to it the layers that need to be there, the particular outreach piece that I believe should be present and a part of how they do it at the Empowerment Center. Everybody can make an appointment or have the means to remember that appointment or be able to take certain steps that go along with that. Even though they may also make enough money to own and afford a house, and have a real need to get into a house. Also just wanted to lift up real quick the fact that lack of generational wealth also means lack of generational wealth knowledge go along with that. And that lack of knowledge is big in a couple of different areas that keeps people from being able to either have or maintain what it is we're talking about. That and I mean, as Grant put it, and he's gonna, I'm sure, touch on it at some point. The owner occupancy rate is at such a low rate here in our state and in our city that it really is atrocious. But owner occupancy adds to the growth of a neighborhood, the restoration of a neighborhood, and the community safety of a neighborhood. So if you're talking about community safety, you should also be talking about helping people to get their feet on the ground.
Awesome. Thank you. That's another one that we haven't touched on yet. All right, Tashika, you're first up for the next question. I won't. What obstacles or barriers, I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but just from your position at your agency, are people of color and underrepresented groups currently experiencing with housing?
Thank you. I believe this population faced multiple challenges to homeownership, including discrimination in lending. We have all seen the historic data, HMDA data, showing the disparities that exist between people of color and whites in homeownership. Grant just shared some data with us. So making sure that we are all afforded the same opportunities as far as lending. A lot of people of color experience poor credit. They are taken advantage of for predatory lending because some of us just don't have the financial background and the knowledge that we need in order to improve our credit.
Does that include the underbanked?
The underpaid?
Underbanked.
Underbanked, I would say, I would include them as well. So having the poor credits being taken advantage of by predatory lending, not being able to get out of that cycle, like I said, lack of knowledge about the financial requirements that it takes to purchase a home, and lack of knowledge about the home buying process. And I've mentioned this before, but a lot of people say, my mom didn't buy a house, my grandparents didn't buy a house, so why should I buy a house? And then I just go on and let them know all the reasons why it is important for them to build that foundation for their children and their grandchildren, as far as building a generational wealth. Many people of color, like I said, is not afforded the same opportunities when it comes to not only housing, but healthcare, education, employment, and the criminal system. So there has been years and years and years of discrimination when it comes to people of color.
Okay.
And we're still fighting to this day to be looked at as a first-class citizen in the US. Many people of color also do not have grandparents and parents passing down that generational wealth, as I mentioned before. So it can be a struggle for us if we don't have that support, where if we want to go to college, we can pull out equity and send our kids to college. If we want to pass a home down to help them, our kids start that building that wealth and becoming a first-time home buyer, it's just not there.
Okay, that's time, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Got 3 more bullet
I
points.
know. You'll have another chance, I promise. Okay, so Max, same question. What obstacles or barriers are you seeing at City Hall for people of color and underrepresented groups?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to take, because I think you captured a lot of some of the rationale for why a couple of years ago, when the mayor came into office, convened a bunch of community partners, including some of those at this table, and tried to talk about what are those barriers that people are facing with home ownership, and trying to put in place some solutions to really get at that. And so I think the Financial Empowerment Center kind of grew out of that, a place where people could get free, professional, confidential, one-on-one financial counseling to kind of tackle some of these things that we're talking about. And the FEC is something that exists in other cities across the country, but there is no other equivalent center in Wisconsin. So Racine is the only place that actually has an FEC and is actually working with residents in this way directly through the city. That's why in my introduction, I said, hey, I'm a little surprised because there's a lot of stuff, not to say that there aren't issues that still need to be tackled as we're talking about, but some of these very innovative things that people at this table have participated in or are leading, and the intentionality around connecting the FEC with housing resources so that there is that handoff for somebody who gets their credit right or gets that counseling and then is able to then go on and become a homeowner after that. So the city has actually worked with hundreds of people and turned hundreds of people into homeowners and home buyers. So I think I'll stop there.
All right, perfect. Kaylee, same question. What obstacles or barriers are you seeing with families of color and other represented groups through Unified that they're experiencing with housing? What obstacles?
I mean, I think Dashika covered everything really well with that. I mean, for our families, looking at my data, it doesn't totally follow the demographics of Racine Unified as a whole. We do have more families of color who are experiencing homelessness at this time. I can't necessarily speak to why, as I don't help necessarily in obtaining that housing, but it's definitely an issue that we see within the district.
Okay, thank you. Earl.
I would, that, Kaylee. Dashika did cover it nicely. I would say a particular kind of investment in strengthening people's belief in fundamental fairness, because a lack of fundamental fairness is a lack of trust in the systems that's supposed to be carrying out that particular kind of fairness. And the housing market is one of them. And because we know in decades past, the housing market and governmental systems, local and national, played their part in boxing people out. Like, to change that around, you don't just throw money at it. You really got to build relationships, and you have to build those partnerships that matter and are meaningful. And so people that I see at the shelter, our guests, tell me all the time that I have no interest in going into that building over there, because our people, and I speak about it in my community organizing all the time, is that people that I know and people that I represent, they don't utilize systems, they endure systems.
Mhm.
And the history has shown that that's the case over and over again. So why would I walk into a building that's representative of a system and lay myself bare so that I can then be mistreated, accurately so, because they have all the accurate facts.
Sure.
To change that, we have to invest differently and not just create tools, put tools on the table, but also help people walk with those tools.
Thank you. Grant, your the last one, answer those questions. Same question.
So as I watch families apply for our housing program with Habitat, things I often see are families who are cost burdened, meaning that they pay more than 30 or even 50% of their income on housing. Half of the renters in Racine are considered cost burdened. So it's really hard to afford everything else in life, whether it be education, clothes, food, medical supplies, when you are hamstrung by how much you have to pay for housing. I think, like it's already been covered, education, just why should I pursue different housing options? And do I have family and friends who can help me walk through that process, or a champion who's going to encourage me and help me overcome those obstacles? But specifically as it relates to people of color in our community, like if you look at a map that shows redlining in Racine County, and you look at some of the areas in our county or city that are still experiencing the most housing instability, there is a direct overlap. So we are still working through that. And then like Dashika also said, there were 3 banks who the Department of Justice opened up cases against within the last couple of years for discriminatory lending. As a white man, if I have the same income, ability, down payment, credit score, everything on the application, I am twice as likely to get approved for a loan to purchase my first house as a person of color. And our Department of Justice is trying to do something about that.
Excellent, thank you. So just a show of hands, who knows when redlining was lifted? What year? Just shout out a year. Well, that it would be true. No, but when did it stop here in Racine? Right, well, there's that part, but it was a law on the books until 1976. 1976. So that's how recent the redlining was in the city of Racine. When you think about that, think about how long you have to overcome. Yes, sir.
Our bill.
Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying, lifted, right? All right, Max, you get the first take on this next question. What are areas of opportunity to increase access to housing or even to improve the quality of housing in Racine?
Well, I think Mr. Fields' answer was kind of right on here with the trust piece. And I think that's honestly, yeah, it's the foundational thing. And I think we see that across the board. There's a lack of trust, and that is something that we need to keep working toward. I don't think anything that we're talking about, especially, from my perspective, again, being someone who's fairly new to the city, we can't do any of this without a substantial amount of trust and working with everybody kind of together to do it. It's too big of an issue not to work with everybody on. There are some things that are happening that I think are interesting, right? In terms of the investments that are being made into particular districts with TID and TIF, and not going to sit up here and pretend to understand all the finance piece, but investing millions of dollars into neighborhoods, into housing stock and improving housing. But again, that goes back to making sure that people actually know how to access that and are able to access that and access the system. So I'm learning just as much up here, I think, as I'm sharing. So I just want to appreciate that answer.
Excellent, thank you. Kaylee.
I definitely echo everything that he's saying. A big thing for the families that I work with is that education piece. They don't know. Here in Racine, we do have a lot of programs and people to help, but families don't know about it. Or even the organizations that are helping them may not know that there's also this organization that does that. I think in Racine, we are working together more to be more aware of what other organizations and things are doing in the area. But I definitely think that there is more joining we can do together to help better service our families. And I mean, one thing I would love to see the idea of a way to erase evictions off records. I know I said that before, of evictions is a huge problem, but I mean, we can go
That's
to,
a great idea.
right? We can go to driver's ed, right? And get your little points taken off or take the classes. Why can't we? I would love to see something like that happen here. You go and you take a finance class, a money management, whatever it may be, to maybe like erase evictions or something of that sort. So we can allow more access for those families who have those evictions and those records.
Great, thank you. Carl, same question. What areas of opportunity do you see for access to housing?
Well, I love Max's answer. Kaylee covered it nicely. I mean, she definitely introduced something here that I've only heard about in a few other states.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, oh yeah, and that's the thing. That is a concept that they are talking about in other states and trying to move on. So I appreciate you introducing that here. I would say that there's a lot of love in our city. There's a lot of righteousness in our city, and we do a lot of things as we speak. Empty Bowls is going on, and they're doing that to raise money and take care of people. So I really wanted to acknowledge that. There is an investment in the community that is going on, but it's not going on in a widespread enough way. We also need to be highlighting the city strengths, highlighting our wins. It's a big deal when somebody gets into a house. And so I love the way Habitat for Humanity does that. But we also need to be highlighting people and what it took to walk that road and helping them to help others to build that community. I remember when me and Grant met each other a while back at Wingspread. I didn't forget. And he ran the concept down to me in the way of an approach. And I was like, man, that's genius. I've been watching it unfold ever since. And I think that having, mixed communities of people who have established homeowners, generational homeowners, along with first-time homeowners is a smart concept. That is also interracial. He didn't say that, but I caught it. That's also how you go about putting that restoration piece in, but also explaining why and being able to talk about that. I mean, an elected official who can only talk about it once they're retired is a struggle for me.
Yeah.
We need to be able to talk. We put people in positions to represent us, talk about these problems and lean into it with people who are living it. I promise you, trust can be built a lot quickly that way.
And we're going to finish with you.
I also agree that there are a lot of good programs here. And so I would like to see, I think there's more opportunity the more we collaborate. I think the better I understand what Carl's doing and what Dashika's doing and Kaylee and the city and the Hope Center and Halo, I think the less overlap we have in programming. I think that's always a danger in nonprofit space is we're all sometimes doing the same thing. And so I think we can better transfer or move people through from various programs to the others. And I also think if there is overlap, then we can be more strategic in trying to make sure we're working in the same places at the same time to see the greatest impact, and try to focus on specific pockets of the city or specific issues and bear more resources in those spaces. I really like the idea of the rents program that was started. I think that there's more work to be done there, but in concept, I think there is opportunity there. There's a big state surplus at the moment, and all of the Habitat affiliates in the state of Wisconsin recently proposed a bill to the governor for a gap loan for first-time home buyers. We are hoping that will get included as that process continues. That would be an incredible resource for people across the state and in Racine. And then Racine really received $15 million from the state specifically for housing in the Lincoln King neighborhood. And I think that is a once in a generational opportunity that we've been given that I hope we take full advantage of.
Excellent. Thank you. Dashika, we're going to finish up with you for this question. What are the areas of Did I say we're going to finish with Grant on this question? Yeah, sorry. Actually, Dashika's last on this one. So what areas of opportunity do you see to increase access to housing or improve the quality of housing in Racine?
I would like to mention learning about and taking advantage of the resources that we have here. Housing resources have been serving Racine County for over 22 years. Offering first-time homebuyer education and counseling, walking people through the steps to homeownership, helping them to overcome those barriers. We have the Financial Empowerment Center, which offers free one-on-one financial counseling. Homeownership may not be a goal for everyone, especially if they're in a crisis situation or trying to figure out where they're going to live. So helping them to identify other goals, short-term and long-term, that they would like to achieve, partnering with other great organizations that's making an impact in the community, like Habitat for Humanity, Racine Revitalization Partnership, the city of Racine, the county, all of the great initiatives that's going on there. And then building stronger partnerships and collaborating more to build a resilient Racine. To me, we've been doing that a lot more, I say, over the last several years, but continuing to build those partnerships and work together for our community.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. The last question, we're going to start with Kaylee. And this is kind of, we've been like, so this is an uplifting question. In what area of your work are you seeing meaningful progress, and what makes you most hopeful?
I mean, for the school district, there's only so much that I'm able to do to assist my families. I'm not able to get them housing and do all of that. So a big thing that I focused on, which I feel is growing and growing every year, is my relationships with our community partners and being able to connect families to those resources. Because like I said, Racine has them, right? We just don't communicate with each other enough. So bringing recognition as well. So out of majority, I should say all of other housing programs here in Racine. I'm the only one that follows McKinney-Vento. So we recognize that families who are doubled up are experiencing homelessness. HUD doesn't recognize that. So bringing that perspective to things like this and getting it out in the county and our COC, things of that sort, and having people understand that our homeless numbers are so much bigger than like our point in time count. Because a lot of people don't, again, see or necessarily recognize that those who are doubled up are currently experiencing homelessness. And a big thing that I can say as well is that I have gotten, I don't want to say buy-in, but like I've gotten buy-in from school staff, which has helped kids be supported within our buildings and to help our teachers, social workers, counselors, principals, whoever are working as well to connect these families to resources and giving them the support they need within the buildings, which may seem only like a little thing, but it also means everything to these kids. So it's been super helpful.
Thank you. Carl, same question. At the hospitality center, what kind of meaningful progress are you seeing and what makes you most hopeful?
A lot more conversations have been had. I've seen a lot more professionals who do this work, connecting with people who are living these truths we're talking about more clearly, more accurately on a daily basis. I mean, there's also, a plan in the works to build a one-stop shop place. So in that, we at Hospitality Center have been dreaming for some time to do some of this collaborative partnership that we've been talking about up here on this stage. I mean, we clearly aren't the only ones. There's also a real big push for mental health and the conversation around it tangibly to be both on the table and an investment in it. The county's doing some things around that. And, I'm happy to see that because Racine having a place, Racine having opportunities to help people get their mental health needs addressed prevents us from having to utilize our default system to help address that.
Go ahead, that was awesome. Clap. Who here knows what the biggest mental health facility is in the county? Dale.
Right.
No, you're not. There's no mental health care. That's just where they're storing people. Oh, I digress a little, but yeah.
Hey, it's fine. It's accurate. So here you are.
Yeah. So, Grant, same question. Where are you seeing the most meaningful progress and what makes you most hopeful?
I'm seeing a lot of meaningful progress. I get encouraged every time we have a new partner, financially sponsoring a home or an individual donor sponsoring our mission. I am encouraged by some of the new programs we're exploring to do repairs here in the city, in addition to providing people with their first house. New loan opportunities where people could have a Habitat loan that's not necessarily with a Habitat house, give them more freedom to shop, increase their housing stock options. I'm really encouraged by the fact that over 95% of the families that we served in Racine are people of color. And so it's a small part that we play, but I'm encouraged that we're doing something to change the metrics that we've talked about before. And most importantly, every time we sell a house, I have a lot of hope we do this thing called a house blessing. So the family goes to the title company, they sign the paperwork, they come back to the house, and we have like a ceremonial presentation of the keys. And we invite everyone from the community who's been involved in the process of building that home. And it's just encouraging. I always say, I look around the room and I say, this would not be possible if it wasn't for everyone who is in this room today. So I'm encouraged to see people in our community who care about this and who are willing to do something about it. And every time we see a family buy their first home and their family there to support them and their kids excited about where they're going to sleep and what bedroom they're going to call theirs, it's hard to not love my job.
Ashika, same question. What are you seeing most meaningful progress and what makes you most hopeful?
Seeing people take control of their finances and dedicate themselves to the process is very rewarding, whether it's purchasing a home or just reducing their debt to make it just a little bit easier for them to sleep at night. It takes a lot of commitment and sacrifice to overcome barriers to credit and to pay down debt, as well as create a budget to save. There's a study that shows that 29% of people who participate in homebuyer education and counseling programs are more successful home buyers because they do have that background knowledge to keep their credit scores where they need to be to maintain their budget, to understand what impacts their credit.
Not
These are
just to buy the house, but to keep the house.
correct, sustainable home ownership. And that's all what we teach them through both programs, Housing Resources, Inc., as well as the Racine Financial Empowerment Center. And what makes me the most hopeful is helping families again build generational wealth, as well as stabilizing our city and our neighborhood. And lastly, knowledge is power. Once you know better and once you understand credit and how to budget, a lot of us know what we're bringing in and what our expenses are, but do we actually sit down and create a budget to make it a reality? So knowledge is power.
Thank you. Max, you're last on this one, and this is our final like group question. So-
Yep, just to kind of piggyback off what Dashika said, through the partnership with FEC, 787 first-time home buyers have been educated and 277 of them have purchased homes. That was the numbers that I got from Vicky. So that housing resources, through housing resources. So that to me is promising. Of course, there's much more that we can do. I think some of on the renter side, some of the proactive inspections that are happening. So the team's actually going door to door, talking with renters and seeing if there's something they can help with and document and assess code violations to landlords. It seems pretty promising to me in terms of what I've seen in other cities and what Racine is doing. So that.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah. So I'm just going to remind you again, if you have a question, put it on a card. And well, you're the only one. But if you have a question for a particular panelist, make sure you write that on the card too, so that I know who to ask the question of. All right, so now what we're going to do is, again, you're going to have minute to a minute and a half. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, they're in the back. Sorry about that. Oh, thank you. So again, you're going to have a minute to a minute and a half to answer, but each of you get a question that is unique to your position in your particular agency or organization. Grant, what role should homeownership play in addressing housing instability?
I'm biased, but a very large role. As a case study, I think we look at the Lakeside neighborhood in the village of Mount Pleasant, right by Wells Brothers. We've been working there for a little over 10 years. And referencing that owner occupancy percentage we spoke about before, that the areas of our city, that was one that was 30%. And with a concentrated effort in the last 10 years, we've seen some blocks more than double. And as a result, like Carl mentioned, crime has drastically decreased. We've also seen.
Did I say crime?
Huh?
Meant crime though.
Oh, yeah.
You said safety. You said
For
safety.
safety?
I did use the buzzword. No,
Say
you're
safe? Oh,
perfect. No.
Sorry. All right.
Oh, no, I appreciate you calling it straight
Yeah.
out. Appreciate you
Um,
calling it straight out.
And home values, property values have increased by over $50,000. So I think as we see home ownership increase in parts of our pockets of our city, things like civic involvement go up. People are more likely to vote. They're more likely to get involved in neighborhood watch. Their mental health improves. They have more safety and security in the place that they live. They don't experience things like lead and asbestos or overcrowding. Their physical well-being improves. Their education and ability to graduate and earn a higher income when they go forward improves. So I think it leads to a lot of positive things.
Perfect, thank you. Dashika, how can families overcome obstacles to homeownership? Thank you. Such as housing instability and medical problems, because we all know that medical debt is probably like the #1 reason people declare bankruptcy. But how So how can they overcome housing instability and medical problems that often lead to credit issues?
I feel that financial education is one of the key factors to getting started. Again, once you know better, you can do better. Learning about what impacts your credit is important. And most of us are not taught about finances at a young age, so we're kind of trying to figure it out as adults. Taking control of our budget is important. A lot of people, like I said before, know what they're bringing in and what they're paying out, but they don't actually have a plan. Sometimes we're left with more month than money. So trying to be creative on ways to improve and increase income. Homeownership can be more of a challenge for people who are on a fixed income or who struggle with a lot of debt, whether it's medical debt or mismanagement of credit. So being able to work with the organization and a certified counselor to be able to help them step by step in putting an action plan together to overcome those barriers, and then finding resources in the community that can assist people with these challenges. A lot of people don't know about the supportive services and financial services that's available in these hospitals, where they have financial assistance, they have an application, they have a process, but it's not talked about. And knowing when to catch it before it goes to collections. So there are a lot of people that are challenged with low income and excessive debt and medical debt, but trying to identify the resources that can help them would be a start.
Perfect, thank you. Carl. You mentioned that I don't know who mentioned it. Somebody mentioned criminal records and how that can be a barrier
Right.
to housing.
Oh, that was Kaylee. Absolutely.
Kaylee, sorry,
Absolutely.
Kaylee. I know. How often do you see housing? I'm sorry, that's Kaylee's question. How does a person's criminal record affect their ability to secure safe and stable housing? And then how does one overcome it?
Well, like she said, most of the time, unfortunately, a person doesn't. That's the reality of it. Like most of the time, it doesn't happen. I would say that one of the ways that we go about challenging that and fighting that is both through city and county policy. There are ways to say that and put into law in a very tangible way that these can be barriers, or better yet, why don't we figure out a way on how to wipe these convictions off of people's records? Because we think of convictions, or in this case, evictions, as a civil matter, and this shows up on people's record as criminal matters all the time. And you're thinking to yourself, man, you got kicked out of your house, or you got kicked out of an apartment for one economic reason or another, or one devastating medical reason or another, and somehow that translates to mean a criminal act? The short answer to that is yes. And there are people who, quote unquote, become criminals because they have been labeled criminals and they have nothing else to do but figure it out on the streets. That is a very real thing. And so I seriously appreciate somebody other than myself lifting that up here on this panel. And so I feel like, we have to have some grace for people and for people's circumstances. And to do this work means that we're going to have to see to it that people get housed, point blank, period. And as a community, we're all committed to that, regardless of what their circumstance was, what their record looks like. To do that, how do we do that when the people making those kinds of decisions are the ones that work out of organizations, or they work with, and their institution is funded by spreadsheets? Like, they have to connect with people, and we have to be making a way for people to make it into the halls of City Hall, to make it to the county building, to have that civic engagement that Grant talked about. And like Dashika talked about, we got to start with the end in mind. This is what choices look like, good and bad. Your current circumstance, you're in a scenario that can be overcame, but here's how you go about doing that on your terms.
Great, thank you. Kaylee, with the families that you work with at Unified, how do you see housing instability affecting students? And how have you been working with in-building staff and faculty to become more aware of it?
So I mean, it greatly impacts our students who are identified as McKinney-Vento. So experiencing homelessness at any point in their high school career, that could even those kids who, were in shelter for a week once their freshman year, right? Like these are still in the statistics. They're 30% less likely to graduate high school here in Racine Unified. Those are our numbers. And a big point, I mean, if you're hopping around, obviously truancy is an issue, all of that. On a district level, I have a great relationship with our transportation company. I can normally get kids busing in like a day. If mom calls me today, gives me a new address, I can normally have it set up for tomorrow. So we don't have this time period that we're waiting for the kids to get to school. In our elementary level, so our 4K through 8th grade, so through middle school, we do have reading and math intervention. So for those who are in the Families in Transition program, they are able to receive Title I services in reading and math. And then we also have a new thing that we started. This is our 3rd school year. We actually changed it up a little bit this year. She's actually a licensed counselor. We have a study hall at all 3 of our comprehensive high schools or academies, Horlick, Case, and Park. And in this study hall, the kids do get a credit for it. So they're not just sitting in there, not obtaining anything towards graduation, but she also teaches them, I mean, of course, how to stay on track with homework and do all of that. But she also is teaching these kids how to effectively communicate with teachers. So how to compose that email, how to reach out and ask for help. She helps them complete assignments. And then she also takes the mental health side of things. So she talks about the anxiety and what's going on at home. If they need help, she helps connect them to resources. And this has been, especially this last year, COVID was a mess, as we all know. But this last school year, this teacher has been a blessing, honestly, to our kids. I want to say it's like all but like 2 kids are getting like at least 6 credits. They got 6 credits this last semester because of the work that she's doing. So it's pretty impressive. And I mean, I do trainings with all of our staff yearly to help kind of get the word about. And so we can do that trauma-informed approach with these kids to help support them instead of get them in trouble for not being there or having their head on the desk because they're tired or they're stressed because they don't know where they're going to be. Our teachers are becoming more aware of these circumstances.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Max, do you see any opportunities for collaboration between the city and the county to address foundational issues like housing for people of color in Racine County?
Yeah, I think that the city and the county are collaborating on a number of issues from health, mental health to housing. I know there's a county supervisor here tonight, so that's nice. I think there's obviously a lot more opportunity to do that. I'm excited about, I know somebody mentioned the $15 million state grant to the Lincoln King neighborhood to invest in housing there, invest in a new King Center and a health center. I think these can be done with good collaboration with the community and with every entity that's involved, whether it's a nonprofit or residents, and as well as the county. And I think that will have a big impact on not just the neighborhood, but also the city.
All right, thank you. All right, so Sister Lisa was sending me text messages from folks who are, oh, wow, okay. There's a lot of questions from Zoom. So we'll take one from Zoom here. This is for everyone. There's not a particular panelist. It says landlords were mentioned briefly. How do any of you and or your organizations work with landlords in Racine? And is there a footprint in some other community where they have a strong program that includes landlords as part of the solution that I assume this audience member is asking, like if we don't have one, is there a program somewhere else that could serve as a model? And I don't know who wants to take that one. I think we're gonna go with Max.
Well, Vicky could have taken that if she was here. All I know is that we do a landlord registration for rental properties, and that's a one-time thing. Landlords pay a fee to register their property. I don't think I'm not sure that we're actually actively engaging landlords in these discussions. I would say frankly, they're generally adversarial to renters. And I think we need better protections for renters at the state level. And those have been eroded by Republicans over the past 10 years.
Okay.
I said generally too, just to be clear. Absolutely. I was just talking generally about the state level.
Oh, wait, this is not the place for that. So that's wonderful. So we have a couple of questions that are basically dealing with the same thing, and it's where is affordable housing for single middle income people in Racine? And then what is being done to address the severe lack of housing stock that is affordable? So I'm going to go with Shika on this one.
The rents initiative that has been going on for a couple of years. It is, we're looking to hold landlords accountable for providing safe, affordable places for people to live. So I do know that the landlords do have to register, and I do know that there are people can make complaints to the city about their housing if it's not safe and affordable, and they have an inspector at the city that will go out and investigate the complaints.
Mhm.
And if the landlord does not take care of the health or safety issue, then there can be penalties and fines put in place, as well as rents can be interjected and held at the city until those health or safety issues are taken care of. And I can't remember the other part of the question.
So it was, what is being done? And anybody can answer the second part of this. What is being done to address a severe lack of housing stock that is affordable? Like, we just don't have it. And
Oh.
Racine is not unique. Like, that is an issue in many communities.
So I would mention the $15 million contribution towards the Lincoln King community to build affordable housing. I believe there's going to be about 50 units with single family and townhomes that's going to be in that neighborhood over the next several years. And all of those homes are going to be targeted to low to moderate income families, and they are going to be affordable, as well as the rehab properties that Racine Revitalization Partnership is working on. Again, they have to be low to moderate income, and Habitat for Humanity properties are also only sold to low to moderate income families.
So
I'd like to jump in here
please do.
and speak to landlords and owners of various kinds who own homes, who have properties to rent, who won't rent. In there is an opportunity to build some relationships, because those are real challenges. Looking at it objectively, if I own 10 properties and most of the time I rent to low income people, and for one reason or another, I can't get a consistent amount of rent, I can't get rent paid, or feel like I don't have a relationship with the powers that be, I would be very selective with my place too. And so I'm just going to put that out there objectively and say that there is some real opportunities for us to build relationships with people that rent property. But we gotta bring landlords and owners out of the shadows. Same time, our first approach can't be simply writing another law, another policy to penalize them for not doing the right thing. Let's give them some opportunities to do the right thing. Because I know a lot of landlords and renters, a few of them in the audience now, who help people, call me all the time and say, I'm looking for somebody. I really want to help somebody. I'd like to make some money, but I want to help somebody. And they prioritize both. And we need to build that kind of a bridge alongside people who are struggling, because those two parties having a relationship means some housing is going to happen. If we can do that on multiple levels, we can get somewhere.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And this is from one of our audience members on Zoom. We talked briefly about the lack of housing for those living with mental illness. So there, and this question specifically, I'll just read it verbatim. Are there any plans to create more shelters in Racine? There are issues with lack of housing for people who have mental illnesses and other disabilities. Some individuals need support to keep their housing, and many are banned from Halo, or Halo doesn't have any available beds. So just, who wants to raise their hand for that one?
I'll jump in here. This being my lane, my particular space. No, there are currently no plans to do that. There was a plan to put more housing in place, but that fell through. What I would say is that there are some real tangible plans on the table now for the city and the county to do something around mental health, and they seem solid. What we need is some opportunities to understand that we already have sizable budgets. And if we had a pie chart up right now, you'd be shocked at, the large percentage of that budget that we all put forth through tax dollars, where it goes. You'd be surprised by that. I always am. So the money isn't the issue. How we prioritize and spend the money is. And that means we can't be led by fear. We got to be driven by love, and we certainly got to be driven by stats. And we got to be smart about this. And so I would say we need to have those kind of conversations with people at the table, because Racine could use another shelter. And how do we fund it?
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate your statement and your question. We certainly can talk offline about that very thing. I deal with that every day. I'd be happy to help. And I just wanted to pass the mic back.
No,
We should
Right.
rally. We
yeah,
should.
we should. But again, the question, and Carl's brought this up, Haley's brought it up, we've all brought it up, it's resources, right? Like, and what is the list of priorities? How do we want to take care of each other? And that's really what the question comes down to. So this is kind of a question that kind of rounds everything, well, sort of. But we keep talking about all these organizations, right? Resources. There is no one-stop shop at all. It's really.
Not yet.
Well, right, okay, so not yet.
Not yet.
It is
it,
really hard, and it doesn't even matter, and housing resources, yes, but almost any other resource too. It's like really hard to find the information. So, and I don't know, Max, if you can answer this question or take it back to Vicky, Corey, I don't care who, but what is the plan? Like we need there's got to be a plan. But what's the plan? And who's going to spearhead it to bring all of this under one umbrella? Make it easy to access.
Yeah, I'll get back to you. I don't think I can take that. I'm not sure. I would argue that may not be the best idea to put everything under one umbrella. I think that I think our organization is extremely complex. Like we're a social service, we're a general contractor, we're a bank, we have a retail operation, and that's a lot for us to manage. And I want to do a piece of that really, really well. And I would rather trust somebody like Carl to tackle a different portion. But I think that if we work better together, if we collaborate, I think there can be more of a seamless transition of service and programs. And we can collaborate on more efforts and make it feel more like we're one big.
Yeah, and umbrella, I didn't mean like smush it all together.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
That's silly,
Yeah.
right? Like, no, but I mean like. just-
Communication, or
Well,
what
I
do you
think
mean?
it's resource, like
Yeah.
there's clearly a lack of marketing. I lived in Racine for 20 years. I have never heard of Dashika's organization. I've been with the media for 100 years and have never heard of that, your organization, right? So there's clearly a marketing issue. But I think that comes from not having, as Carl put it, a one-stop shop where all of these resources can be accessed without having to call 50 different phone numbers.
Mm.
And so that's more of what I'm asking about.
Got it.
Like, so how do we make that happen? Mhm. Mhm. Correct.
We do have Racine County here to help. They are supposed to be the hub of all resources, right? So I think as organizations, we need to also do better at notifying them when our services change and what our services are available. But families can call, it's 638-6400. I direct families there quite a bit. So they are kind of that direct referral system. So if you have them, they can help. It's Racine County workers. I believe they're located at the, workforce over on Taylor. But it's connecting families. They can get them connected with, this is how you apply for W-2, food share, whatever the case may be. But it is like that 211 type of line. So a lot of times I tell families call 211 because there are Racine County resources on there. But also that here to help line that is run by Racine County workers to
Can you
help
repeat
that
that?
direct referral system.
Really, can
Essentially,
you repeat that number?
262-638-6400.
Thank you.
Racine County here to help.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Their knowledge base to be able to connect and push our families to.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. So
And then,
what,
I'm sorry, also the Grow Racine website.
Grow Racine?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So the Grow Racine
And-
website. Okay.
Just another hub for resources for those that want it. UW Extension has a great, it's like a 85-page resource book. They have that. They have a family quick list. They also have links to the 211 website where you can either directly search. But UW Extension does have Racine County resources, like all in one webpage.
Perfect. Thank you. So this one is regarding landlords. What resources are available to landlords to encourage upgrading older homes?
There's a new TID district that I think specifically addresses that. And I would have to, for more information, I'd say reach out to the city.
Yeah, I can try to just get contact info for somebody to reach out to about that. I know some of the funding's going directly to owner occupied units, and then some I believe is going to rental units. I'm just not sure on the details. So if somebody wants to answer to that, we can get you a response. If you want to come see me, I'll make sure to get you an answer.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. Yeah. So I'm sorry, what you're saying is super valuable and I, everybody who's interjecting, we want to hear from you, but the people on Zoom can't hear you. And so all they hear is like a blank of silence and then somebody answering a question they didn't hear. So as much as it's valued, and thank you for the participation. I get it. Oh, I get it. So we've talked a lot about home ownership, but if a family is in danger of losing their home today, what resources are available to help them?
As far as if they're a homeowner at Housing Resources, we offer foreclosure prevention as a free service.
Mhm.
We've been providing that service for over 22 years in Racine County and Kenosha County. So we have certified foreclosure prevention specialists that would work with the client and the lender to go through a modification, a forbearance, anything to help them to maintain their home.
What if they're not homeowners? What if they have been renting an apartment? And,
Sure of any of those resources.
pardon me? Oh. Mhm. They're not taking WERA applications anymore? Okay. But not renters. Okay. So we got a question about policy. So, and we talked a little bit about policy, right? About erasing convictions and evictions from people's records. So I'm pushing for us to have another forum with our elected officials from the city, the county, and the state, so that we can answer these kinds of questions. So as much as I would love to ask this question up here, unfortunately, none of the people sitting at this table are policymakers. And so we need, the question is, what kinds of policies, advocacy do you think will address the systems in place that result in the serious lack of affordable housing, such as helping people wipe evictions off their records? So this is a policy question that I'm going to save because we're going to do a part 2. I'll just let you know. Okay, so we have 8 minutes left. Hold on. Other resources. Okay, so are any of the people sitting here up at the front, are any of your programs adopting any of the housing first methodology promoted by the federal government? Anybody?
Well,
They don't house people.
the short answer is yes. But our shelter is a day shelter. We're a drop-in shelter and we operate as a soup kitchen. What we do is that we offer opportunities to people that exist, and we, help to educate them on how to use those resources. But in the meantime, we walk with people. We also, move in a number of different ways. Trauma-informed approach is one of them. Being able to point to resources that do exist is ultimately the focus. But I would say that when it comes down to it, we definitely need more connection, more partnership.
Excellent. Let me ask that on the microphone. So the question from the audience is, are there any efforts underway to address housing as a more immediate concern and leaving the underlying issues once the person or the family has housing?
Well, I thought that might be yes, there is, but that might be a little known fact to a lot of people because Racine has a continuum of care board. We changed the name, Housing Homeless Alliance. That is one of the things that is key on the agenda, and that is one of the things that we focus on when we meet on a regular basis.
Okay.
Somebody like Scott Missel can certainly address, can speak to that, more in depth than I could. But yes, that is a focus. But then you immediately, as an entity or as a table full of professionals, you run into the problem of multiple issues, whether it be mental health, whether it be the ability to manage the apartment, whether it be the ability to maintain food in the apartment. You run into all those things. And if there aren't supportive, collaborative pieces that exist around the housing first approach, then it falls down.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so from the audience, any organization in the continuum of care, which I know it has a different name, but yeah.
Housing Homeless Alliance.
Housing Homeless Alliance does take a housing first approach. So, all right, so I just want to thank everybody. Really, thank you for your participation. And what Grant and I talked about this right before this started. For the second part, I would like to see our representatives from the city, so Corey Mason, should he win re-election, Jonathan Delagrave from the county, Bob Wirtz, Robin Boss, and Van Wangard up here next time. And then I would like the 5 of you to return and ask them each a question from your particular agency and area of genius that you have. So I think that's just one portion of it, but we will have this same type of format. And we'll invite all the electeds and we'll let you guys know when that is. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I'd like to second that. Thank you. It's been really great to see everybody come out. It's great to see people care about their community and willing to do something about it to make it better. And we were really psyched to see all the questions. We apologize for not getting to all of them. There are a lot of really good questions, and our intent is to endeavor to get those answered and to send answers out in an email to everybody who registered. So have a great night, everybody. Thanks again for coming, and thanks to our panel.
Thank you. Thank you.